Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. So, where do I begin with this one? Well, let's get the most important news out first, because obviously it's very significant. And it is the fact that Tommy Robinson's admin team has now removed the silenced documentary from their Twitter. They even released a video of them going out of their way to go to the Twitter feed to delete the thing and the page refreshing. So it's beyond doubt that Tommy has removed the video. I only found out about this yesterday, as there were a whole load of other things I needed to deal with. And on top of all that, there was something else I had a little bit of frustration with last night trying to do the XCOM stream. 1% chance of my stream not actually working, even though I've hit start stream. Anyway, Tommy Robinson, in my humble opinion, as much as I'm conflicted about it, I do have to admit I think he's made the right decision about this, quite frankly, because at this point, 167 million views. That video has served its purpose of showing up Keir the traitor Starmer and our treacherous establishment for what they truly are. But when I found out about this, oh God, I'm being attacked. Oh, no, when I ended up finding out about this, what was the first thing I did? I went and found a post which basically had Tommy Robinson's documentary, and I basically retweeted it. Because Tommy may not be able to post that thing up there, but they said nothing about us Indigenous English people posting that documentary. I mean, the way I look at the whole situation is the establishment was basically trying to close the stable door after the horses bolted, and then some other horse came along and bolted out of it just for shits and giggles. Because let's face it, there is no shot that Tommy Robinson supporters or people who appreciate what Tommy Robinson has gone through are ever going to let that video fall out of the public domain. At the end of the day, we the British people, we the English people, have a civic duty to uphold our values and our laws. We have a civic duty to do well by Tommy Robinson, since he has given so much for us in order to expose the government for how it's handled the GR ooming squads. And of course how they dealt with that little incident in Huddersfield, Almondsbury School, if I remember correctly, where Bailey, who was pretty much labelled as the antagonist in this, I guess, feature film, or what have you. Obviously it's not a feature film, but it fits a certain context, doesn't it? Anyway, the fact is they put Bailey in there, tried to portray him as the horrible, evil white man who had the absolute nerve to attack a poor Syrian refugee with a bottle of water. Oh no, actually that wasn't it, was it? What was it the mainstream media called it? Oh yes, waterboarding. Yes, they tried to compare pouring a bottle of water over Jamal's face as, well, they compared it to a form of torture used in places like Guantanamo Bay, or something mayhaps the CIA would use against people who are terrorists. And I've even demonstrated a few times, a couple of years back, what waterboarding truly is. And this is about as close to waterboarding as I am to the moon. Who said you're rocking a full moon? Shut up, you. Anyway, the fact is, this is nowhere near waterboarding. And it is disgusting our mainstream media made it out to be like that. Jamal then undeservingly got £157,000 of British taxpayer money. I feel for the poor NPCs who were actually taken in by this gullible claptrap. To compare this, there was a man who later down the line actually risked his own life, a taxi driver, I believe. But there was effectively a taxi driver who ended up unknowingly driving a terrorist up to a hospital in Leeds. He was actually an S-side bomber. Yes, I am trying to divert from YouTube's fascist algorithm. But this bomber had every intention of going into that hospital and ending hundreds of people's free trials of life. Well, this taxi driver then decided, in a twist of fate, to lock the car with the bomber in there, and then he managed to escape the car seconds before he blew himself up. That's the terrorist, of course, not our hero. Do you know how much money he got? He got 30 grand at most, I suspect. I know it was certainly no bigger than like 30 to 35 grand. He got a fifth of what Jamal did when he saved a hospital filled with hundreds of people that could have died that day. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. But to add further insult to injury, what was Jamal's father named? Jay Hard. Obviously I'm changing the had, because obviously we know what happens when YouTube hears it. But Jay Hard was this guy's father. Let that sink in. We have a boy who got into a playground scuffle, who was a known bully and a compulsive liar, who beat in a girl's back with a hockey stick, knocked a boy unconscious, stabbed people in school, but this kid gets £157,000. Yet, if you're a hero that stops a terrorist bomber from actually going into a hospital and ending hundreds of people, you'll be lucky to see 30k. He didn't even get a fifth of what Jamal got. Shows you where our establishment's priorities are. And like I said, the mainstream media will not tell you this because it would showcase just how fucked up society is, quite frankly. But we already know we live in a two-tier policing society and a two-tier justice society where someone can literally go around and assault their constituents and they won't even face jail time. You can literally be a practicer of the religion of Allen's snack bars and you won't even face a custodial sentence until massive pressure is put on for assaulting a copper. Because that's the only reason those people at Manchester Airport are actually facing trial right now, is because there was immense pressure put on by the British people and some politicians to say, you know what, it should be fundamentally wrong to hit a copper, and if you end up doing so, you should face trial and a custodial sentence. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have people that are getting locked up for social media posts, stupidly or not so stupidly. Obviously there are some people who are inciting violence and inciting terrorism, but what about the people who are just exercising their free speech? What about those people who are following the rules? Still getting locked up by Keir the Traitor Starmer. Another example of two-tier justice. We have Tommy Robinson, who was locked in prison for not even breaking a contempt of court, because it turned out that in Leeds in 2018, everything that he had said back in the day about one of those GR ooming squads, turned out everything he said was in the public domain. It was on the BBC's website. And hell, the BBC even had to change one of their stories about Tommy Robinson when they said that he pled guilty to contempt of court when they had absolutely no evidence of this whatsoever, and they fundamentally knew it was untrue. Did the BBC get locked up for misinformation? Of course they didn't, because they're part of the oligarchy. And yet there were people who were putting out misinformation about the Southport riots, and what happened then? Oh, you put misinformation out about Southport, the boys will come round and kick your door down. Just like that. God, I'm getting robbed of 60 pence now. They know full fucking well it's 240 to go to Wingfield Road. Anyway, the fact is, our oligarchy are making sure the only people who get actual heavy-handed sentences, too heavy-handed I would say, are the people who are part of the supposed far right. who obviously Keir the traitor Starmer hates with a burning passion. The ordinary British and English people of this country who are concerned with people from a certain religion going out of their way, in particular to a dance class, to butcher 3 innocent girls. They were not far right, they were concerned parents, frustrated parents, even angry parents, you could go as far as saying, who were fed up of the way this government is operating as far as mass immigration is concerned. The fact that we still have pretty much a kid gloves approach when it comes down to the illegals crossing over the channel. The fact that we're literally putting disability benefits down while we're hiking up the benefits for illegals that come over here. They get bed and breakfast paid for, they get gym membership paid for, which is very suspicious considering that could mean that these fighting age men can get themselves into fitter shape. Yeah, put that into perspective. They're getting that free of charge. There's also shipments with crates probably filled with weapons now being shipped over to these hotels. They've got 2-tier police and foreign security guards guarding those things like it's the king's firstborn son. As said, bed and breakfast paid for, benefits paid through the nose by the taxpayer for all of these illegals that have no legal or human right to be here. Meanwhile, if you're a veteran who served in blanks, who has served their queen or king and country, you'll get left to rot in the street. This really is an absolute injustice to all those people who fought in those 2 world blanks and died for this country. Maybe that if they saw what was going to happen as far as Keir the traitor Starmer is concerned, they probably would have said, fuck it, we'll just let the Germans have it, quite frankly. Look at the way this treacherous, sectarianist bastard of a Prime Minister is running this country. Well, he's not running the country, he's running it into the ground. He's run it into the ground so much, I suspect if you took the United Kingdom out of that patch of dirt, you'd probably see a fucking imprint of the island. That's how much of a traitor Starmer is. More interested in letting in the invaders than actually looking after the country. He'd rather be with Davos and the WEF than in Westminster. He would be persecuting Tommy Robinson the first God-given chance he got. And frankly, they have, when they sent the Attorney General after him to lock him up for this supposed contempt of court. Though, as I've said many times before, if we were to get serious, technically Tommy should never have served his time there because it wasn't even a crime he committed. The Americans were the ones who broke the contempt of court by putting that film out. Tommy Robinson merely shared a film that was effectively already in the public domain thanks to the Americans. But that's something, of course, the mainstream media are not going to want to tell you because it would undermine the entire establishment. The cold, bitter truth that the leftoids certainly won't want to hear is Tommy should have been a free man 6 months ago. He should have been freed from that prison, and right now, instead of being freed from prison, Tommy Robinson has been subjected to the worst torture that this country has ever seen in a very long time, if not in entire British history. And I am very bold when I say that shit. Because, yes, I do accept there are some people like John Snowden or Julian Assange that have also gone through these kinds of strenuous things. But here's the thing. Their crimes involved, I believe it was espionage and leaks on Wiki. Tommy is in there for contempt of court. That isn't even a true contempt of court, as I said, because of it being in the public domain. Now do you see why I say it is the worst case of torture? It's not so much the torture itself, it's more why he's being tortured. At least you can understand with a spy, because a spy could have leaked all manners of shit that threaten your national security. Whereas Tommy Robinson, all he's done is expose the corruption of a government. and the councils and the two-tier police and the two-tier media. I would hardly call that urgent news. I would hardly call that something that warrants torture under Article 3 of the Human Rights Act. The most amount of time a prisoner should be serving here in Britain in solitary confinement is 3 days before they're reviewed. 2 weeks if you want to go by EU regulations, which frankly we should have already left the ECHR God knows how fucking long ago. But it doesn't change the fact whether it's 3 days or 2 weeks. There is one thing that is absolutely certain, and that is Tommy Robinson should never be in prison, number one, and number two, he should not have been subjected to this torture. It kind of reminds me of a situation where you've got people who are being locked up for committing the worst crimes. They say, oh, we're in for, because we did this, that and the other, we got like 18, 20 years in prison. What are you in for? Wait, you're in for that? I've seen people get tortured for less. That's what it reminds me of. And Tommy Robinson is unfortunately that poor sap who is effectively the one getting tortured for less. Tortured for a civil offence. And the mere idea that our government is more interested in prosecuting, or rather persecuting, Tommy Robinson for not removing the video that has gotten 167 million views on Twitter, rather than, oh, I don't know, who's the biggest threat to the country? The fact that we have got plasticine people who are supporting a terrorist group, begins with ham and has an ass. I think you know which one I mean. But they'd rather prioritise a man who exposes them than actually puts our country in real danger. It shows you where Keir the Traitor Starmer's head is at. It's up his own fucking arse, quite frankly. Now, I did mention briefly about the Southport riots. So, where do I begin with this one so we can get off the subject of Tommy Robinson? How it's now turned out the police have actually mentioned there were no links to the far right. No links. And what was the very first thing that Keir the Traitor Starmer said as far as the Southport riots are concerned? What was the first thing he said? He condemns this far-right thuggery. This is my seriously not amused face right now. Because Keir the Traitor Starmer, he didn't think before he spoke. He acted on impulse. He acted on left-wing, Marxist, globalist virtue signalling. That's what he did. He decided to go to that good old-fashioned slave phrase that gramophone minds will just be able to associate and remember how the left always likes to think of us as people that basically you want to associate us with a bad smell. Well, if you want a bad smell, just look at a dead skunk. Anyway, they like to refer to us as a bad smell. They prefer to associate us with things that already leave a bad taste in your mouth. But what they forget is that a lot of these left-wingers, these NPCs, they only know how to project. They only know how to cast their own weaknesses onto other people. Because we know deep down who the real scumbags and the real traitors are in this country. And what this effectively comes down to is Keir the Traitor Starmer was very quick to associate it with a group of people who, frankly, have been in hiding. There is another far right, and it is the religion of Alan snack bars. The ones that like to single out white men and then go after them with blades and machetes and what have you, like the true third world barbarians that they truly are. These are the people that seem to avoid the quite rightly appropriate title of far right. Those people should be genuinely labelled as far right and should being barbarians from their third world shitholes, be sent back to them. But then that would go against the oligarchy's narrative of replacing the indigenous people. Right now, we are going through a phase where effectively our establishment is doing everything they can to turn us into a second-class citizen, into a minority in our own country. And how can they do that? They import people who unilaterally hate us with a burning passion. And what better people than the religion of Allen snack bars? Of course, not every single one of them absolutely hates us. And there will be people who are saying, oh, you're associating all these types of people with them. No, because there are a select few people who are actually speaking out against these people. One of them was candid with Lubna. Lubna ended up getting bullied off of YouTube because of keyboard vermin. I don't call them warriors because that would imply they are great people. No, they're about as great as the spots on Keir the Traitor Starmer's backside. These people are not warriors, they are also vermin, threatening Lubna with ending her free trial of life and scaring her and intimidating her off of the platform, which nobody deserves. Not even, as much as I am loath to say it, people like Sadiq Khan or Keir the Traitor Starmer. But I am deviating a bit. Let's get back to the Southport riots. They obviously labelled us as far-right. The real far-right, who aren't the Allen snack bars, are currently in hiding right now because they want to build their numbers up. They want to build a force that they can actually bring about to our government. And I suspect there will be a Arlution surrounding it. I could be wrong, but that is me speculating. I suspect that's what might happen once they start to build up their numbers. But Keir the Traitor Starmer did everything he could to shield the identity of the scumbag who took the lives of those 3 innocent girls. He did everything he could to protect him while he was locking up people who dared to speak out about him. He used contempt of court to stop people from finding out the truth. He suppressed the truth and repressed the English people. This traitorous, sectarianist bastard then went out of his way in one of his first speeches to say, and I quote, "I will do everything I can to protect the," insert M word here, "community." End quote. He decided he was going to protect the people who this boy, this scum, is now a practicing person of that religion. But he will not protect the people who have just lost 3 beautiful angels in their little town of Southport. When he was up in Southport, what did he do? He brought in a wreath. He showed about as much emotion as the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. He placed the wreath and he fucked off back to Westminster to have a party. That's our leader for you. Keir the Traitor Starmer, the granny harmer, the scumbag protector, the sectarianist wanker, attacking farmers and libelous slanderer of half the fucking country, who basically said to those 3 kids, I don't care about you. Like I said, Keir the Traitor Starmer, no matter what it is, shows as much emotion as the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. He has literally no soul, no emotion, and there is no sense of good or self-worth about that man. No thank you for that wanker, because he took the extra 60p. Anyway, Keir the Traitor Starmer is a man who I could never stand behind. Someone could give me all the money on the planet and then some, and all the minerals in this planet that are precious, and I would still say fuck Starmer. The man who, when it turned out the indigenous people ended up guessing correctly, although there was some misinformation out on the internet, that this person, this scum that attacked and butchered those 3 girls was actually a practicing person of the Alan snack bar community, oh look, did you think he actually apologised to us? No, he doubled down and he put everything on red despite knowing it would come up black. So it begs the question, how is a man like that so incapable of actually admitting when he's wrong? And on the subject of this man, how on earth does he sleep at night? He probably sleeps like a fucking baby. In the meantime, his speeches literally put everyone to sleep, quite frankly. Because nothing of what that man says can actually be taken seriously unless you are completely brainwashed with a drip feed to your brain of BBC propaganda. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if Keir the Traitor Starmer visits the fucking hospitals and literally puts in some kind of brainwashing shit into the IV bags for those that are losing their life. And I probably wouldn't put it past this traitor either. All this, of course, and on top of all that, there's that India-UK trade deal, which is going to prioritise the rights of Indians versus the English people. The fact they now don't have to pay any national insurance or tax. 20% tax for the next 3 years, or on the first 3 years of coming over to this country. But we have to pay, and we will end up paying in the long term as well. Oh, sure, he says, oh, we'll end up with like fucking £500 billion for the economy in effectively 15 years. Sounds like a lot on paper, but here's the thing. We're already paying about 500 million for the NHS per day. So you can imagine how quickly that figure of 500 billion is going to get chucked out the window. Just like that. The thing is, Keir the Traitor Starmer will only describe to you what he wants you to hear. He won't tell you about the fact that this is effectively going to open the floodgates for millions of Indians to come flying over here to this country and live here if they so wish. But here's where it gets even worse. So imagine you're an Indian who comes over to this country and you want to set up your own business. Well, you've already got 20% off because you're not getting taxed and what have you. What happens if you want to have, like, I don't know, an Indian restaurant and you only want to hire Indian workers rather? Well, then what effectively happens is the employer's not paying the 20%, the employee's not paying 20%. So for 3 years, that restaurant is basically getting 40% off between employer and employee. Now that surely doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Further to this, obviously if you've got more people flying in from India, which, let me tell you, India is just as much of a third world shithole as a lot of the Middle East. And you don't even need to fly over to India to find that out. Just go to Birmingham and look what happened there. Now we've got all that trash and now all of a sudden there's the growth of these super rodents that normally the pest control would be able to deal with. Now they're scared to go out there and deal with them. And it's all because of intolerant people from the snack bar community primarily, and of course illegal immigrants that have no legal or human right to be here, that effectively are ruining our country. That's what it comes down to. And goddammit, I'm putting my blood, sweat and tears into this one. Literally. Anyway, the fact is, we should not be opening our gates to this many people. We should not be remotely opening these gates to any more of these people. We're already packed to the tits as it is. We are already full. We have already got more people in our country. We've taken in more people than any other country on this fucking planet. Yet, we're supposed to say, oh, you know what, come on in, as many as can come. He's literally taking a page out of Angela Merkel's playbook as far as immigration is concerned. And that is going to go down about as well as a lead balloon. Keir the Traitor Starmer, the man who wishes to do everything in his power to destroy our great nation. Well, let me tell you something. The British people will fight back. Whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's in a few years' time. Because the British people are not going to stand idly by while you continue to fuck the planet or fuck the country. If anything, more and more people who you libelously slandered as far right when they were merely concerned, angry and frustrated parents and citizens who could see the circumstances of what was going on, you labelled them all as far right. Do you know what that's going to do? That is actually going to push them towards the genuine far right. And when that happens, and then there's an arlution on the back of what you said, you won't be able to blame the English people. You will only have yourself to blame, because you were the one who sat there stoking the fires. You were the one who was libelously slandering half the fucking country. You were the one who was actively doing everything in his power to make sure that he prioritised all the wrong people and all the wrong priorities over his civic duty, which should be to protect the realm and all of its inhabitants. I could do a better job guarding the country than Keir the Traitor Starmer, and I don't even know half the shit about running as Prime Minister, quite frankly. I reckon even a 3-year-old child could run the country better than Keir the Traitor Starmer, and frankly I would love to see it, to basically shut Keir the Traitor Starmer up once and for all. But we all know he's not going to go quietly. Any dictator, or maybe I was right first time, that is in power is never going to go quietly. Think of Stalin. Think of Mr. HIT, and you can fill in the blanks. The one who started the 2 world blanks. Because that's the cold, bitter truth. Keir the Traitor Starmer is effectively that far-left socialist 2.0. And I'm not afraid to say that. Because unlike a lot of YouTubers, unlike a lot of people in this country, I am not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I am not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. Unlike Keir the Traitor Starmer, who literally sells bullshit by the second. You could literally put him in a tub full of roses and fragrant water, and he'd still somehow find a way to come out smelling like shit. The bottom line is, the Southport riots, he stoked them. He slandered us, he lied to us, and he protected the criminal, or in this case, the terrorist. He is one of the people who's going out of his way to protect the GR squads. He is the one that is trying to put us back into the EU, even though 17.4 million people had voted for Brexit, and we're still waiting for it because of our treacherous politicians and political class that think they are superior to us. He is responsible for setting the Attorney General onto Tommy Robinson to have him locked up for daring to expose the government and its astronomical failings towards the country. And Keir the Traitor Starmer, while he can't be held wholly responsible for the immigration issue, obviously the Tories have to take some responsibility, as they've had most of the governments for the last 40 fucking years. But the cold, bitter truth is, Keir the Traitor Starmer has had a chance, many chances in fact, to put an end to the immigration just like that. But he has chosen instead to double down and open the floodgates to even more people, prioritise the enemies of the state, and allow people to come into this country when we simply don't have capacity. He is putting in more foreign workers, more cheap labour, and he is undercutting British English workers. He is devaluing the English people. I don't know about you, but that to me makes Keir the Traitor Starmer the worst Prime Minister this country will ever have in its entire history. A man who literally can do no right. The only thing you could say that is positive about Keir the Traitor Starmer is he acts as a perfect role model of what not to be when you are the Prime Minister.